Now called to order. For those of you around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking so that those on the phone can hear you. For those who are participating via Zoom, please remember to unmute your device before speaking and mute when you are not speaking to create for all attendees. Phone participants should use *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise their hand. Thank you all for attending today's meeting. The MAG public comment process provides opportunities for members of the public to comment on items scheduled on today's agenda or on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. 3 opportunities are provided for public comment, including call to the audience, consent agenda, and action items to be heard. MAG also provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website prior to the meeting, as long as the comments are received at least 1 hour prior to the posted start time for the meeting. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a white request to speak card located on the information table in the hallway. Please be sure to indicate the item for which you want to speak and give it to a designated MAG staff member. If you parked in the garage, remember to validate your ticket. Parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. For those who purchase a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Please note that hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff, and we will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Management Committee. I will go down the list of members of those appearing, I will go through the list of all members. Please unmute and indicate that you are present. Matt Busby.
Present.
Shirlene Panilla. Dan Halderman.
Here.
Gary Neese.
Here.
Carrie Dyrick.
Here.
Josh Wright.
Present.
Crystal Dyches.
Present.
Jeff Graves.
Here.
Phil Dorchester. Grady Miller.
Here.
Kathy Valenzuela.
Here.
Kathleen Curley. Rob Bohr.
Here.
Kevin Phelps.
Present.
Julie Cairns.
Here.
Jeff Kulaga.
Here.
Matthew Williams.
Here.
Joy Rich.
Here.
Rick Horst. Chris Brady.
Here.
Jill Kymack. Jeff Tyne.
Here.
Jeff Barton. Leo Liu. John Cross.
Here.
Jessica Mefford Miller.
Present.
Jennifer Jack.
Here.
Bill Murphy. Bob Ringenloff.
Here.
Reyes Medrano.
Here.
Les Brown. Jeannie Blackman.
Here.
Jody Rooney.
Here.
And Chair Ching.
I am present.
We have quorum.
Thank you very much. Now, if you would, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 3 is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience agenda item unless the committee requests an exception to this limit. Members of the public who were who are attending in person may deliver their comments from the lectern in the front of the room. You have up to 3 minutes to complete your comments. A timer is provided to assist you. When the light on the timer changes from green to yellow, you have 1 minute remaining. The light turns red, a buzzer will sound, meaning your allotted time has expired. I have received one item to speak, or request card for this agenda item. That's from Diane Barker.
Good afternoon, Chairman Chang and MAG managers. I'm Diane Barker. I'm a citizen. I've been in the Valley for over 3 decades and currently live in Phoenix. And I'm so happy this morning to wake up to beautiful sun. I have a southerly view. Some people don't build or want to be in Arizona with that southern because it does get hot in the afternoon. But I do see that more and more we're being conscious, and I hope so, for sustainability. And we do overhangs and a lot of things where we will be able to diffuse the heat and the sun in the afternoon. But I wanted to say that I still have been out doing multimodal and a lot, with folding bicycle on the transit. And I wanted to just share with you this morning on Facebook. I have a friend who's a fiscal analysis, and was from Chicago. So she usually brings me up to date on what's going on. And I'd like to say about the inflation rate. Greater Phoenix, Maricopa County region has a higher inflation rate, around 11% than our nation. Lower income, even middle class, are being greater costs affected by the cost of living negatively. Therefore, as many transit fare boxes are inoperative, driver and security pass checks often lead to passenger arguments and slow down. I ask MAG in all of your bodies, and I appreciate this one very much, to be fiscally responsible. Consider a no-fee Valley Transit. And we could do other things. The corporations like to have their employees come by transit. It helps out with air quality. So we could consider corporate contributions, fundraisers, private donations. I do contribute and buy some tickets because I see some people that obviously need a ride and they don't have money and they're arguing with the driver. And it's not good. You shouldn't get drivers. I've been a driver. You shouldn't get drivers upset, and it slows the system down. I want to ask you, in your bodies of government that run transit, how much really comes in the fare box? Because I understand with Phoenix, if it doesn't come in a third, the contractor is going to go out of the public purse and get that balance. So from being there and seeing that, if I was a wealthy person, I would be more than happy to give charity as a donation to help those that need a ride. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Are there any other members of the public here today who wish to speak under item 3? Call to the audience. Seeing none. Did we receive any other cards or any other written comments for this item?
Thank you, Chair and members. No public comments were received for the call to the audience or any other item on the agenda.
Thank you. We'll close item 3 and move to item 4, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Management Committee. If we can go to the next slide. I have a couple of things to share with you today. In late April, attended the Nikola Rollout. Governor Ducey spoke down at the Nikola factory down in Coolidge. This was their first day. They were rolling out their first customer delivered vehicle. So once again, a big moment for Nikola. It's had a kind of a rocky history, as you know. That truck there has 9 large battery packs on it, has a range of about 300 miles. Next year, they plan to roll out their hydrogen fuel vehicle, which has I think they said they had a range of 1,000 miles on that. So once again, this is the future, I think, that we see here building in Arizona. Go to the next slide. Elsa Belgine accompanied a number of officials in the city of Phoenix who reopened their Hermosillo trade office. That happened in late April also. Very good event. And we go to the next slide. And then based on a invitation by Governor Durazo, Governor of Sonora, we're hosting a economic mission to Hermosillo in June 8th through 10th. If you're interested in attending, contact Elsa there at her email address on the slide, and she can give you the details on that too. So, Mr. Chairman, one more slide. Sorry. Go to the next slide. There we go. And then later this month, we're going to be participating with GPEC and hosting a group from EU countries, in particular from France. So that'll happen on May 27th. Did have an opportunity to talk to a delegation from the Netherlands last Friday, including the Minister of Mobility. A very interesting discussion. They're very interested in our electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle ecosystem that we have here in Arizona. So very well received. That completes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. If anyone has questions, please feel free to contact Eric after the meeting. We now move on to item 5, which is the approval of the consent agenda. Items 5A through 5H are on the consent agenda today. Does any member of the management committee have questions or request a presentation on any of these items? Hearing none, prior to approval of the consent agenda, do we have any members of the public who wish to comment on any items on consent? I have received one card. That card is on item 5A.
Yes,
Diane
thank
Barker.
you, Chairman. Just briefly, and I think that Mag has done a great job, with the minutes. And I read them because sometimes, I have a tendency to maybe not pick up on what is being said. But I would like to strike a few words in what was written of what I said at the April, I think, 13th meeting. It's the part that suggested an increase in security presence. And the reason I'm asking that is that I did not want to convey that without going on a rant. I was unhappy with the present security. I realize there needs to be security, but there are other ways. The transit's been running security for years to get people when there is a problem. I'd like to see greater customer service in all of our transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barker. Anyone else wishing to speak on agenda item 5? Do we receive any written comments online?
No public comments were provided on any of these items.
Thank you. At this time, is there a motion to approve consent items 5A through 5H?
So moved. This is Brady from Fountain Hills.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll go ahead and have a voice vote of those in the room. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Okay. We'll now do a roll call vote of those appearing virtually.
Thank you, Chair members. I will go down the list of members who are appearing virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Matt Busby,
Aye.
Gary Neese,
Aye.
Carrie Dyrick,
Aye.
Josh Wright,
Aye.
Jeff Graves,
Aye.
Grady Miller,
Aye.
Jeff Kulaga,
Aye.
Matthew Williams,
Aye.
Joy Rich,
Aye.
Jeff Barton,
Aye.
John Cross,
Aye.
Reyes Medrano,
Aye.
Jeannie Blackman,
Aye.
Jody Rooney.
Aye.
Did I miss anyone?
This is Crystal Dykes. I'm an aye.
Thank you.
This is Kevin Phelps, aye.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We now move to item 6, which is Landlord Liaison Tool Threshold, launching to help people experiencing homelessness. Here to introduce our speakers is MAG Human Services Director Kelly Williams.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for having me here today. I'm pleased to be able to introduce to you today Daniel Davis. He's the Director of Landlord Relations with Home Inc. Daniel is here to speak to their new Landlord Liaison tool, which is called Threshold. Such work is included in the second action step of our regional plan to end homelessness. The Threshold tool includes landlords for COC-funded housing programs. And further, we'd like to extend our appreciation to Maricopa County for providing funding for Threshold and the many other investments they've made to address homelessness. Before we move on to Daniel, I see Joy Rich from Maricopa County is on the Zoom. If she would like to speak about the county's participation in this work, we'd like to give her a moment to do so.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, everyone. Yes, we're just highly pleased to be able to be part of this effort. Our board has, I think, really leaned in on this issue and taken the opportunity to financially support these movements. So we just want to say how grateful we are to be part of this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. And with that, I present Daniel. Just pass.
Members of the committee, thank you for having me today. It's an honor to be able to present to you a new tool to combat homelessness in our community, and it is called Threshold. My name is Daniel Davis. I'm the Director of Landlord Relations at Home Inc. For almost 30 years, Home Inc. has been administering housing assistance vouchers for those experiencing homelessness in partnership with our service providers. We kind of work on the housing side of the tenancy, allowing them to work in their zone of genius in developing, in providing supportive services and developing housing stability. Some quick good news. I'm not here to ask you all for any money today. As was highlighted before, this is fully paid for by the county for 5 years, and it will be a permanent resource in our community after that. Next slide, please. So after introducing Threshold, I'll provide an overview of our various resources and our primary strategy of engaging all stakeholders in the solution to homelessness. I'll identify a few of our goals along with our ask. Next slide, please. The number of people in need of housing continues to outpace the amount of available units in our community, and the problem is only getting worse. Threshold believes that when all stakeholders are engaged in the solution, communities are able to fulfill their promise of a home for everybody. We're taking an every tool in the toolbox approach to finding permanent housing solutions for all individuals and families in our community who don't have homes. Property owners and managers are integral parts of our community's infrastructure. They literally own all the structures. And they need to be at the table in order for us to actually make an impact in homelessness. Historically, our our programs and vouchers have only incidentally supported property owners and managers in the capacity that we interact with them with current tenancies. But by bringing everybody to the table, we can actually execute on these solutions. And that's why with funding from Maricopa County, Threshold is building a centralized network of resources and support to meet the needs of property owners and managers so that they can operate profitable and well-maintained properties while providing safe and stable homes for those in need. Threshold is not a standalone voucher or a separate housing intervention, but it lies atop the existing voucher system, enhancing it and making it work for all stakeholders. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read a lot of these slides verbatim, just this one and the next one probably. Because individuals, families, and communities are stronger, healthier and stronger when everyone has a home. Threshold supports and collaborates with property owners and managers to be active partners in ending homelessness by building a network of resources and support for like-minded property managers and owners to operate profitable, well-maintained properties. Next slide, please. So what is Threshold? Threshold is Maricopa County's go-to centralized landlord liaison service. If you think of a normal tenancy that many of us experience, the main parties are the landlord and the tenant. In the homeless voucher system, we also have the administrator or the service provider. Threshold lies at the nexus or the intersection of all those parties. It's a single door for landlords to open their units to everybody who has a voucher. It's also a unique opportunity because of the bold leadership of the county to take this on so that jurisdiction and municipality boundaries don't play a role in this. We can invite all providers and all vouchers to the table. Next paragraph, please. As was previously highlighted, so I won't belabor this point, it's integrated into the regional strategy to end homelessness. So good news for you all, that time you spent developing that giant document. Here's one thing that is already happening. It was something that was identified just as you guys were all ideating what the solutions would be. And the county was already committing to it, like I said, so that it doesn't, so that jurisdictions don't play a role. Next paragraph, please. This is the single table for property owners and managers, voucher holders, service providers, and community leaders like yourself to make the homeless voucher system work for everyone. Next slide, please. Threshold supports and collaborates with property owners and managers to be active partners in solving homelessness. We're going to get to this in a second, but the Arizona Multi-Housing Association has already committed to the success of this effort. Even though this is a resource that belongs to the homeless system, this is a place where, you know, the majority of what all stakeholders agree on can actually materialize and happen. So we're already listening, and then we're acting upon what the requests are. And we have the support of a lot of the for-profit sector, a lot of property manager and owner entities and organizations. And so, and then we're also incorporating the feedback of people with lived experience who are currently experiencing homelessness. Next paragraph, please. Just a word of advice, if you're ever presenting up here, make sure that all the paragraphs just show up on the slide at once. And Threshold also supports all permanent housing programs serving those who experience homelessness. So again, all landlords, all providers, all tenants, and hopefully all units. Our participants need access to as many affordable housing units as possible. And when they have more choice, they end up being more successful. They live closer to their community supports, their families, their churches. They already live closer to the schools that their families have historically worked with. And then they're already closer to their jobs or their churches or whatever the community groups are they participate in. And we're really trying to live out the theory that rising tides lift all boats. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start by narrowing it down a little bit. Which vouchers do not work with Threshold? Standard housing choice vouchers for low-income housing households don't, low-income households don't qualify for Threshold. This is a calculated and specific effort for the homeless system. And so we need to kind of free up the emergency service system before we can, start to offer the services everywhere else. Hopefully we're so successful that once the homeless system is alleviated, we can focus on other opportunities for people who need housing. Next paragraph, please. But those that do qualify are targeted Section 8 or housing choice vouchers. So HUD-VASH, emergency housing vouchers, and then housing choice vouchers that have a preference for homelessness. Next slide, please. And you just bring up the 4 paragraphs, please. So why just homelessness? Well, we all know there's a drastic increase in homelessness due to the housing crisis that existed before COVID, and then a lot of the technical complications that happened during the eviction moratorium, and then rental assistance administration shortly after that. we all know of, the growing population on the street outside the Human Services campus, but also families often are not seen on the streets. They're usually in the back of cars or they're couch surfing along with homeless runaway youth. Why just homelessness? We're focusing, like I said, on a calculated effort. We really want to free up access to housing for people. Once they're in shelter, they already have housing program vouchers. So it's really hard to find a home, much less a job or services when you're on the street. So we want to really expedite the process out of emergency shelter. And we also know it'll have an immediate impact on the community. We had a landlord sign up last month, and we put him into our software at about 4 p.m. And the next morning he emailed us saying that he had 7 applicants already. This is a very quick, it's an in real time solution where everybody coordinates together. So far, we've onboarded 138 new landlord partners, representing almost 190 properties, which have about 6,000 units in them. Currently available in our software, there's 91 units from new partners that we've onboarded since October 1. And then we're able to make emergency shelters available for emergencies. We don't want to warehouse people, especially those who are the most vulnerable. So we want to make that a quick interaction, get them shortly stabilized, and then into their own permanent housing. Next slide, please. Why only housing programs, and why not people off the streets or out of shelter directly without a housing voucher? Well, number one, we know that permanent housing, next animation, I guess. We know that permanent housing is the answer to homelessness. We're often talking about the auxiliary supportive services or other aspects that go into stabilizing somebody, but we really can't, like I said, you can't get a job. It's really hard to get clean on the streets. What you need is that stability, that experience of a home. And it's the biggest need that we've seen. I'm not going to go into affordable housing again. I'm sure you guys have heard a ton about what the landscape looks like, and obviously the housing stock over the past few decades. If you don't already know, we've seen a rent increase of about 27% year over year, even though our occupancy percentage has not grown very much. That leaves us standing alone. I've got a graph I didn't include, but like we're way out there by ourselves. It's not even close. Finally beating New York and San Francisco at something here. So then we also have limited vacancies. So as we're onboarding and opening up these new developments, we already have people moving in from out of state usually to fill those units. And we're making the vouchers compete with the open market, which is extremely hot right now. And then we're also selling supportive services and the various supports that Threshold's going to offer to landlords, so they know they've got someone to call. They've got someone working with whoever the tenant is on employment, on their different health services and other community resources. Next slide and next animation, please. By focusing on permanent housing, we enable our primary intervention to end homelessness, and that is the social workers in the supportive service roles in our community. We have a ton of money, we're throwing money at it, but until people are actually in a home and they're having that relationship and they're identifying their own goals and receiving support to achieve those goals, we're not going to have a lot of enduring success until we really support those supportive service providers. By increasing access to safe, affordable housing, we also empower our participants to achieve housing stability instead of returning to homelessness from a temporary solution. And this enables our common spaces to return to their intended purpose by addressing the issues head on. Obviously, there's a lot of discussion at this committee about transportation and other logistic spaces that are common to our community. If we're able to be successful in this effort as a systemic approach, we free those places back up to be what they were originally intended for. And this enables also our community to feel proud of the fact that they're taking care of their neighbors in their own neighborhoods. Finally, next slide and next animation. Finally, if we can find apartments for the bulk of folks experiencing homelessness, we increase vacancies in shelters. I used to be the director of housing at UMOM, so I oversaw rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing projects for about 70% of the families in the county. And we got a CARES Act award for single women to house 200 single women. We had a single women's shelter, and we took half of our referrals from the shelter and half from the street. And we were overwhelmed, it's not even close how much more successful we were housing people from shelter. And it makes sense. They have a little more stability, access to food every day, supportive services, and they live like 10 feet from your office. So it's a little easier than trying to find somebody on the streets who's changing. But those that were in shelter, we were incredibly successful with. And we also just don't want to continue focusing on building emergency shelters when we know that the long-term solution is housing. All right, next slide. So this is our primary strategy, engaging all stakeholders. Next slide, and then 2 animations, please. Or is it 3? Yeah, 3, please. So in 2020, Home Inc., and when I was over at UMOM, together with Home Inc., we surveyed 103 landlords in our community. And we asked them, what will it take to start taking rapid rehousing vouchers, which are not permanent vouchers? These are people are homeless. We want to get them restabilized. These are people who could be fine by themselves just shortly. Out of the 103 that responded, 90 said that they would participate if there were protections against unpaid rent and vacancy loss, along with damages. 79% of them responded that they would participate if we could financially make our vouchers competitive with the market by offering a one-time incentive. So based on these results, we've concluded that in order to tailor our services to landlords, we're going to offer, and we have been offering for 6 months, incentives at the rate of 1.5 times the monthly rent. We're going to focus on creating and increasing awareness for a robust set of financial and technical resources for landlords, including damage claims at the rate of 3 times the monthly rent and vacancy loss at the rate of a full 1 month's rent. And we're also going to not just buy participation in our program, we're buying down tenant screening criteria. So in order to participate in these programs, you either have to be a new partner. I'm going to get into some of those pieces in a little bit, but we're buying down the screening criteria of previous evictions, no income, and existing criminal history. And then finally, this survey is a good example of asking, listening, and then acting. And we were told that we should continue that practice by forming an advisory council. Next slide, please. So together with the Arizona Multi-Housing Association, we have already had 2 council sessions along with some exploratory meetings. We have 7 of the largest property owner and management companies along with developers on this advisory council telling us pretty much what to do. And then this is also the same table that we're not only inviting these new partners to, we're inviting tenants, people who are currently searching for housing, and service providers to as well. Next slide, please. So what's in it for them? Those financial incentives. We're asking all supportive service providers and Home Inc. administers a lot of these vouchers to ensure that rental assistance is provided and paid for on time and in full. Dedicated owner support team. Where we used to have 1 person who just kind of helped us like process paperwork, we now have a full team of 6 and a 24-hour hotline. It's on that little pamphlet there, you can call it. Peggy's most likely going to answer. She's been in the industry for 20 years. She's super awesome. Shout out to Peggy. And then we're also offering software solutions, and you can look into that a little bit. It's called PadMission, and it's a closed loop in real time unit listing service. And then finally, the financial and technical resources to keep property valuable and in good repair. Next slide, please. These are the 3 ways a landlord can qualify for an incentive. It's either they're a new they're a new partner, they've never accepted a voucher before, they're willing to overlook the criminal history, eviction history, or an income requirement. You know, a lot of places now, because of the market, are requiring 2.5 times the monthly rent as income. And a lot of our participants don't have any income. They're coming right off the streets, right? And then also past evictions, which is very common in the family population, justice involvement. We've already mitigated this requirement for 7 of the hardest to house felony types, or reducing their rent down to market, or from market rate down to our voucher limitations. Next slide, please. go ahead, just pull them up. I think it's going to be 2 more animations. Just real quickly, what counts as a damage claim? I think this is going to be pretty eye-opening. It's unpaid rent, damages, legal and cleaning costs, and cancellation fees and penalties. Vacancy loss is the time it takes to turn that unit, put it back on the market, and lease it back up. As you can see, we're taking all the solutions and all the concerns that have been on the periphery of this conversation for decades, and we're putting them right in the center of the table and asking everybody, how can we actually solve them? Even the Scottsdale Association of Realtors was very impressed once we talked about the damage claims. They actually have come to the table in a lot of ways as well. And so, yeah, these are practical, real solutions that work. Next slide, please. Our goals are pretty simple. Increase the number of move-ins, of people who find homes that are in dignified and safe housing, but also providing the opportunity for property owners and managers to provide the housing that they're in this industry to do. Next slide, please. So the goals are increase the number of partners, increase the number of units, and then increase the number of placements while, next slide, please, reducing the time it takes for somebody to find a home. We want to expedite that and support them through that process, and then also retain all of our partners. Next slide, please. So what will change in your communities? And I think what's really exciting about this is, again, shout out to Maricopa County, but this applies to everybody in this room, which is really unique. We used to have 3 or 4 primary cities that our homeless population could find housing in. And today we have 12 cities in our software right now. So what will change in your community? Next animation, please. A home for everyone. And we really believe that. Safer streets, healthier residents, and families and individuals who are supported and connected to each other. Property managers who are engaged and who are able to fulfill their mission of providing excellent and sustainable housing to our community. And this would be a really unique opportunity. The Valley to become a model community of how all public entities and all stakeholders across all sectors and industries can partner to end homelessness in a very tangible way. Next slide, please. So here is my ask. It's pretty simple and straightforward. You're not going to be surprised. Next slide, please. Become enthusiastic champions of Threshold. This is a new resource that has been built out. It's fully funded. It's working well. The highest leaders in the developer, real estate, and property owner and manager industries are on board with this and want this to be successful. And go ahead and pull up all the animations, please. With our mission of ensuring all stakeholders are engaged, that implies each of you, but also the various networks and realms of influence that you all lead. This is a tool also to bring up when talking about what solutions are for homelessness that are system-wide that are currently happening in your communities. It's an opportunity to combat NIMBYism, to bring us to the table for some of those conversations, to introduce new innovative opportunities when discussing, when having conflicts in planning or development, or other, of those day-to-day kind of conversations that you're having with your housing and planning team. And it's also a tool to reframe the conversation on homelessness. Just when I was just having like a generative conversation with some previous leaders in our community, there were just a lot of different pieces coming into play as to like how this could be applied into your guys' work and elected officials' work. And I think really what I'm asking of you all is to start generating those ideas. Like, you know what that looks like in your daily work. And then also, anytime a development's coming online, anytime there are new units available that you know of, point them our way. We can take care of that. Check out the Threshold website, thresholdaz.com. And it's all pretty self-explanatory there of what we offer and how to connect. 2 last pieces. this Friday, I will be sending out to probably through the MAG staff to each of your teams a champions toolkit, which will include specific and targeted messaging for various stakeholder groups that you usually interact with, along with what our launch plan is. We will have our large press conference May 26th at 10 a.m. at City Plaza Apartments on 30th Street. You'll get all this information along with some branding stuff. And then finally, continue to just be interested in these solutions. We're going to have to adapt and be flexible as we go. So in closing, next slide. Together, we can ensure all stakeholders are active partners in solving homelessness, because when all stakeholders are engaged in the solution, communities are able to make this vision a reality. And again, it's all stakeholders, not just us, but also those who are in the primary relationship of being a tenant or being an owner-operator entity. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, for your fulsome presentation today. Is there anyone else who will be presenting?
No.
No?
Do I field questions or no?
I was just thanking you first, then I was going to open up for questions.
Oh, okay, cool. Cool.
I especially appreciated the slide that showed the combination of legal and cleaning services. If I had known that that was even a possibility, my career path may have been very different. Thank you for that, Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Are there questions from the committee? Anyone? Mr. Brady?
Thank you for the presentation. I guess I just need a little more clarity. I think everything you're doing is great. I think we've recognized, all of us that are in the business of housing vouchers recognize the difficulty of getting property owners and managers to sign up, especially now, right? So that's been a critical issue in finding these incentives to do that. What I'm trying to understand is the connection that Threshold has with the vouchers, right? So are these vouchers, are you managing the vouchers? Or are you the assumption that the communities that hold the vouchers and making them available? Help me make that connection.
Absolutely. So Threshold exists as a separate entity kind of at the center of all these pieces. So we have landlord partners, and then our tenants who are searching for housing, they hold vouchers. Yep. And they have their own organization that's administering and supporting that voucher.
So theoretically, a local government or a county has already approved that individual family.
That's correct.
With a housing voucher. Now they're looking for a place.
That's correct.
Right. And so they have to, so in essence, they have to have that with them before they contact you.
So we have onboarded all providers, and the majority of the work that Threshold does will be with the homeless system, although there are some of those housing choice vouchers I alluded to. So people they've already been identified as eligible for a voucher. They have their voucher. Now they're currently searching. And we've trained all staff across the homeless system how to use our searching software. And we onboard all landlords to do the same.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But it said it excluded Section 8 vouchers. Is that what your reference was?
The general Section 8 vouchers for low-income households
are not part of this.
Correct.
Okay.
Except for those that have a preference for homelessness, for EHVs, the emergency housing vouchers, because they have those supportive services.
Okay.
And then also HUD-VASH vouchers, which are for like supportive
Veterans.
housing for veterans.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Other questions? Anyone online have questions? I have a couple of questions. In listening to your presentation and knowing that you have a 5-year agreement with the county, what are the end sort of metrics of success? What are you looking at in terms of scale, in terms of how many people need to be served through this process that you would consider, the thresholds of success? Not to overuse your name.
First of all, good pun. Yep. But we're looking at a 20% increase of placements for the first year throughout the homeless system. So those are the rapid rehousing, permanent supportive, and the veteran vouchers I was referring to. And so we're looking for a 20% increase in placements for the first year, and then 10% increase year over year. So we do have like specific numbers, but also the The COC committee is also working on bringing all of the data under one roof to figure out like what's actually happening, like in HMIS or excuse me, in our various data systems in the homeless system. So,
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, this item is on for information and discussion only. Is there anything else from you, Ms. Williams, before we conclude? Thank you again for the presentation.
I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 7, which is MAG, Federal Highway Administration Funding, Federal Fiscal Year 22 Secondary Supplemental Closeout. That will be presented by Patrick Stone, MAG Transportation Improvement Program Supervisor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of Management Committee. Pleasure to be here as always. If I could get the next slide, please. So as I always start with closeout, just real quick orienting the committee, what is eligible for closeout? I won't read the list. Simple terms, all those programs and projects that are not associated with our life cycle programs are eligible for closeout. Next slide, please. Purpose of closeout, simply it's to use all of the federal funding allocated to the region in a year. You can see where the funding comes from, primarily from project deferrals, project closeouts, and then also additional federal funding that may come to the region. Next slide, please. Take a moment, policy orientation. The closeout process is guided by our federal fund programming guidelines, last approved by the Regional Council in 2015. Specifically identifies that each year MAG staff identifies our funding position and whether or not we will have funds available for closeout. Next slide, please. So fiscal year 2022 closeout, we typically do one closeout cycle. It starts in the fall. We sent out the message in October to member agencies, notifying everyone we would have a closeout. 30 million was available. Eligible requests, additional construction funding, project advancements, and then funding design and right-of-way for projects already in our TIP. We did receive 33 requests in that cycle, totaling $18 million. Regional Council approved those requests in January. Next slide, please. So doing the math, we had 30 million available. We programmed 18. We had 12 million unprogrammed. We made the decision to conduct a second closeout process. The memo was distributed in January out to member agencies, similar to the first call. We asked for the same types of requests. Member agencies provided those requests. We had 12 totaling just over $6 million. MAG Regional Council approved all of those requests in March. Next slide, please. So how are we here today with third closeout? So real quick, a financial overview of where we are at. Top of the slide, all of the available revenues within the region, totaling just over 177 million. And then below that, our commitments for the year. So this includes all the projects that's programmed in the TIP, plus those first two closeout cycles that were approved, leaving just about $25 million available. Next slide. So the decision was made to conduct a third closeout or second supplemental closeout, if you will. That 25 million I noted available. Difference in this closeout request only for construction overruns and cost overruns. So we were really focused on fiscal year 2022 projects that were, and to points made earlier, suffering from inflationary issues. Because we are getting near the end of the fiscal year, a little change in process. This is a first come, first serve process. We've included in the agenda packet today a standalone table that highlights those requests that have been received to date. And then we'll take those through committee today, and with approval today, those would then move on to Regional Council later this month. Any funding not used in this closeout process would then be carried forward into fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. And with that, the requested action in front of you today is to recommend approval of the second supplementary closeout for fiscal year 2022 and the associated amendments and administrative modifications to the fiscal year 22-25 TIP and 2050 Regional Transportation Plan. With that, Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation. I'd be available for any questions.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Anyone online? Okay. Hearing none. I have not received any requests to speak cards or any written comments. Is that correct? Okay. At this point, go ahead.
If I may ask a question, Chair.
Please.
Sorry, still learning some of the acronyms and MAG terms here. On consent 5D, we approved $2 million for inflationary pressures on existing projects. It sounds like, how is this funding different from that, or is it in addition to that? Could you maybe help me understand that?
So item 5D, and I believe there was an increase for $2 million. That's very specific to our Unified Planning Work Program administered by MAG. That kind of covers our operational costs within the agency. This is really for those projects being administered by member agencies, more of those construction type projects.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, could I have a motion to recommend approval of a secondary supplemental closeout for federal fiscal year 2022 and amendments and administrative modifications to the fiscal year 2022-2025 MAG TIP and Momentum 2050 MAG RTP? It's a lot. I'll say it again if I need to.
I'll make a motion as described by the chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion for Mr. Wingenroth, second for Mr. Brady. Can we have a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now staff will do a roll call vote of members who are appearing virtually.
Thank you, Chair and members. I will go down the list of members appearing virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Matt Busby,
Aye.
Gary Neese,
Aye.
Carrie Dyrick,
Aye.
Josh Wright,
Aye.
Crystal Deiches,
Aye.
Jeff Graves,
Aye, sorry.
Grady Miller,
Aye.
Kevin Phelps,
Aye.
Jeff Kulaga,
Aye.
Matthew Williams,
Aye.
Joy Rich,
Aye.
Jeff Barton,
Aye.
John Cross,
Aye.
Reyes Medrano,
Aye.
Jean Blackman,
Aye.
Jody Rooney.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Now moving on to agenda item number 8. That is the draft fiscal year 2023 Freeway Life Cycle Program to be presented by Arminta Syed, Transportation Planner 2 for MAG.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, members of Management Committee. My name is Arminta Syed. I'm a Transportation Planner 2 here at MAG, and I'm here today to provide an overview of our Freeway Lifecycle Program. Next slide, please. So our Freeway Lifecycle Program, or the FLCP as it's called, is the management tool to implement the freeway and highway projects that were funded through Proposition 400. Every year, we'll update the program so that it reflects the latest revenue forecasts, updated project cost estimates, as well as any minor project changes, such as in scheduling. This agenda item in particular represents the draft program for fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. So our Freeway Lifecycle Program is primarily funded through 3 revenue sources shown on the slide in front of you. Firstly, we have Proposition 400, also known as the half-cent sales tax. About 56% of these revenues are collected and deposited into the Regional Area Road Fund for use on our freeway system. We also have state highway operating fees and taxes, which are deposited into the Arizona Highway User Revenue Fund for use on our state highway system. And then finally, we have federal highway administration funds, which are allocated to the MAG region through the Arizona Department of Transportation. Next slide, please. So this table in front of you compares the total forecasted funds from each of the 3 sources from our fiscal 22 program versus this draft fiscal 23 program. So the first 2, RARF and HERF, as you can see on the slide, have increased from the fiscal 22 program, about 14% and 11% respectively. That last row on there, the federal funding remains the same in both programs. That's because they're both using the old Federal Surface Transportation Act. We are still waiting some further details regarding allocations to the MAG region from the new Federal Surface Transportation Act, the Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act. once we do get those details, incorporate them into the program, we do expect that the federal funding forecast will increase at that point. Next slide, please. So in addition to updating revenues, on the project side, we also will work very closely with ADOT to develop biannual project cost estimates, so we reflect the latest estimates. We will also consider the latest construction cost index projections. ADOT will develop these in fall of each year, and this allows us to make sure that the costs in our programs are reflecting the latest market conditions. And then finally, we'll consider changes to project scheduling. So next slide, please. So this map in front of you shows the 3 notable project changes that are included in our draft 23 program. So starting at the top there, the total construction funding for the 2 interchanges on Loop 303 at 43rd and 51st Avenue have increased to include additional items identified during design. And then if we move down to Loop 303 Estrella, the new freeway extension from MC 85 to Van Buren Road, we were able to advance construction of that 2 fiscal years into fiscal year 2025. And then finally, we show the widening project on Loop 202 Santan Freeway from Val Vista Drive to Loop 101 Price Freeway. We were also able to advance construction of this 2 fiscal years into fiscal year 2024. Next slide, please. So this map in front of you shows our fiscal 22 program in review. Particularly, it shows all the projects that were under construction in 22. The 3 projects shown here on blue have since opened to traffic. So starting at the top, number 9 on the map, we have on Loop 303, Happy Valley Road to Lake Pleasant Parkway. And then number 7, Loop 101 Pima from I-17 to Pima Road. And then moving south, number 5 there on the map at I-17 and Central Avenue Bridge. Next slide, please. So in addition to the projects that remain under construction from fiscal year 22, 2 additional projects will also begin construction in fiscal year 23. These are shown on the map here in front of you in blue. Starting at the top, number 1, we have the 2 interchanges I mentioned earlier on Loop 303 at 51st and 43rd Avenue. And then we also have a second project, number 2, on Loop 101 Pima from Princess to Shea Boulevard. Next slide, please. So in terms of what you can expect from us from next steps, some of these changes that we're making to the draft program are contingent on finding of air quality conformity. Those amendments will be going through the committee process for approval in the next cycle. And then once that's approved, we'll formally adopt this program. And then as previously mentioned, we are waiting to get some additional details regarding the IIJA allocations. So we'll incorporate those into the program. And then finally, we are anticipating that we will be going to the ballot this fall for the extension of Proposition 400. And hopefully once that passes, that will allow us to begin some of that extension work prior to 2026. So Mr. Chair, that concludes my presentation today, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Or I'm sorry, actually, next slide, please. This item, just to remind you, is actually on your agenda for action to recommend approval of the draft fiscal year 2023 Freeway Lifecycle Program, contingent on finding of air quality conformity, but I'd be happy to take any questions before we go through that action.
Thank you, Arminta. Are there any questions or comments?
Andrew?
Yes, Mr. Brady.
Just, it's a slight issue on that State Route 24. They have opened up that first phase, right, from Ellsworth to Williams. And I don't know if that's important to MAG for updating
Correct.
a map, but just to note that. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, Mr. Brady, you're correct. They have opened that segment up to Williams Field. We do expect that the entire segment will be open to traffic by August of this year.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, we have not received any requests to speak on this item, nor have we received any written comments. So at this time, I would ask for a motion to recommend approval of draft fiscal year 2023 Freeway Life Cycle Program.
Sir, this is Reyes and Collison. I'd like to make that motion.
Reyes, is it okay if you second that motion? It's already made by
Yes, that's a disadvantage of being a responsible virtual attendee.
Quite all right. Your enthusiasm is appreciated. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and have a voice vote. For those in the room, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We'll now take a roll call for our virtual attendees.
Thank you, Chair and members. I will go down the list of members appearing virtually. Please unmute and indicate how you vote. Matt Busby,
Aye.
Gary Neese,
Aye.
Carrie Dyrick,
Aye.
Josh Wright,
Aye.
Crystal Dyches,
Aye.
Jeff Graves,
Aye.
Grady Miller,
Aye.
Kevin Phelps,
Aye.
Jeff Kulaga,
Aye.
Matthew Williams,
Aye.
Joy Rich,
Aye.
Jeff Barton,
Aye.
John Cross,
Aye.
Reyes Medrano,
Aye.
Jean Blackman,
Aye.
Jody Rooney.
Aye.
Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much. Closing item 8, we move on to item 9, legislative update. It's Mr. Nathan Pryor, MAG Policy and Government Relations Director.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Management Committee. Regarding state legislation, of course, we continue to focus on our enabling legislation efforts for the continuation of the half-cent sales tax in Maricopa County for transportation. Really looking at Senate Bill 1356 that was sponsored by Senator Pace, moved through the Senate earlier in the session, onto the House, moved through the House Transportation Committee. We've been effectively stalled in the House regarding the Rules Committee, the practice of having affirmative votes from the majority caucus lined up to move that legislation forward. So I think I've been reporting similar to you for some time now in the past month or so. So we continue to be in this holding pattern. Of course, budget conversations are ongoing. So we continue to impress members of the legislature, of course, our member agencies, and working with business stakeholders to keep this top of mind. We want our legislators to continue to press that there be a vote on 1356, so for not to get lost. As you all may be aware, and usually in a legislative session, when the budget starts to move, things can happen pretty quickly. So we don't want to get lost in the shuffle. So when you're talking to your legislators, we encourage you to keep 1356 top of mind and make sure that our legislation does get a vote. On the positive front regarding transportation infrastructure, we did see Governor Ducey sign $400 million in transportation investment on I-10 across the Gila River Indian community. That was signed last Thursday, May 5th. We take this as an opportunity. You know, the legislature has passed legislation, obviously supporting I-10 infrastructure investment. The governor has signed this. We think this is an opportunity to continue on this conversation regarding transportation investment. So let's get 1356 signed. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that completes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Nathan. Any questions? Okay. Hearing none, this is for information discussion only. So we will move on to item 10, which the next item on the agenda is requests of future agenda items. Are there any requests by members of the Management Committee for a future agenda item? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on. Comments from the committee? Are there any comments from a Management Committee member? I have one. I want to formally welcome the new CEO of Valley Metro. Jessica Mefford Miller is here today with us in person. Welcome, Jessica, and we look forward to working with you. Any comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to be here. For members of the audience, I'm Jessica Mefford Miller. I'm our still newish CEO at Valley Metro. I am delighted to be here. I am joining you with years of experience in transportation and transit in particular, and I am so pleased to find a Phoenix region that is cooperative, where there are so many member cities and regional organizations, including and especially MAG, that is committed to working together to improve quality of life for all of the residents and visitors of the greater Phoenix region. So I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Chairman Ching?
Yes.
Yes, this is Jody Rooney Ada. I just wish to express my gratitude. We've reached out to many of the MAG members in regards to the I-10 corridor we're putting in for the grant, and so many that we reached out to did step up, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Comments? Okay. Moving on, our next meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, June 8th at 12 p.m. With no further business at this time, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.